Ever wish you could read people better and form deeper, more meaningful connections? Stick around, because today, we're diving into how Stoicism can help you master the art of reading people for stronger relationships. Welcome back to the channel, everyone. Today, we're exploring the fascinating intersection of Stoicism and emotional intelligence. Specifically, how you can use ancient Stoic principles to read people more effectively and improve your relationships. Whether it's understanding nonverbal cues or responding to emotions calmly, Stoicism offers us practical tools for improving our ability to connect with others. Stay tuned, because by the end of this video, you'll have a fresh perspective on how to strengthen your relationships by adopting a Stoic mindset. In today's interconnected world, building strong relationships and effectively communicating with others is a vital skill. However, reading people accurately, whether it's friends, family, or colleagues, can be tricky. Often, what we think we understand about someone's thoughts or emotions is clouded by our own biases, insecurities, and assumptions. Misreading these signals leads to miscommunication, misunderstandings, and sometimes irreparable damage to our relationships. 3 of the most significant obstacles that prevent us from truly understanding others are emotional bias, projection, and judgmental thinking. Let's take a deeper dive into these 3 common challenges, understand why they occur, and explore how Stoic philosophy provides solutions to overcome them. 1. Emotional bias. How our emotions distort perception. Emotional bias occurs when our emotions color our perceptions of other people. It's a well-known psychological phenomenon. When we're angry, sad, or anxious, we tend to view the world and the people in it through the lens of those emotions. Emotional bias is particularly problematic in relationships because it makes us react based on our feelings rather than reality. When we are emotionally triggered, it becomes nearly impossible to read people accurately because we interpret everything they do or say through the filter of our emotional state. How emotional bias distorts reality. Let's say you've had a frustrating day at work and you come home in a bad mood. Your partner makes a casual remark, but because of your emotional state, you interpret it as criticism. Your bad mood leads you to assume the worst of their intentions, and instead of calmly asking for clarification, you lash out defensively. In reality, your partner might not have intended to criticize you at all. The conflict arises not from their words, but from your own emotional bias. This kind of emotional distortion is incredibly common. Whether it's stress, anger, jealousy, or sadness, these emotions often make us see threats where there are none. The Stoics, however, teach us that emotions are fleeting and should not dictate our actions. Epictetus famously said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." If we allow our emotions to control us, we can never see others clearly, because we'll always be seeing them through the fog of our emotional state. How Stoicism helps with emotional bias. Stoicism offers practical tools to combat emotional bias. One of the central tenets of Stoicism is apatheia, the idea that we should strive for a state of inner calm, free from the turbulent ups and downs of emotional extremes. This doesn't mean becoming cold or indifferent to emotions, but rather cultivating emotional resilience. Marcus Aurelius, one of the great Stoic philosophers, constantly reminded himself to be like the rock that the waves keep crashing over. It stands unmoved and the raging of the sea falls still around it. This metaphor highlights how we can observe our emotions without being controlled by them. To address emotional bias in relationships, Stoicism encourages us to pause before reacting emotionally. When you feel the surge of an emotional reaction, take a moment to ask yourself whether your feelings are based on the present reality or your current emotional state. This practice of prasoge, mindful attention, helps us stay grounded in the present moment. By doing so, we learn to observe our emotions without letting them dictate our reactions, leading to more accurate readings of other people's intentions and feelings. The cost of unchecked emotional bias. Unchecked emotional bias can wreak havoc on relationships. When we let our feelings override logic and understanding, we end up attributing false intentions to others, which leads to unnecessary conflict. Over time, this can erode trust. Imagine constantly feeling that your partner, friend, or colleague is against you because you're filtering their actions through your emotional state. Eventually, you might push them away or create a hostile environment based on nothing more than your skewed perceptions. The key is to separate emotions from facts. Stoicism trains us to evaluate situations objectively, to focus on what is true rather than what feels true in the heat of the moment. This practice not only improves our relationships but also allows us to navigate difficult conversations and conflicts with greater clarity and composure. 2. Projection. How we project our own thoughts and feelings onto others. Projection is another major roadblock in truly understanding others. It occurs when we unconsciously attribute our own thoughts, feelings, or motives to someone else. This happens because, as humans, we have a natural tendency to interpret the world based on our own inner experiences. For instance, if you feel insecure about your capabilities, you might assume that others think you're incompetent, even when they've shown no indication of this. How projection warps our understanding of others. Projection can be particularly damaging because it blurs the line between reality and perception. Imagine someone who feels unappreciated at work. Every interaction with their boss might be seen as a slight or criticism, even when the boss is offering constructive feedback or praise. This person is not reacting to what is actually happening, but rather to their internal belief that they are undervalued. The danger of projection is that it creates a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you consistently believe that others view you negatively, you may begin to behave defensively or aggressively, which in turn prompts negative reactions from others. This also plays out in personal relationships. If you are harboring feelings of guilt or shame about something, you might project these emotions onto your partner, assuming that they are angry or disappointed with you when, in reality, they haven't given any indication of such feelings. This can create unnecessary tension and conflict, as your partner is left confused by your behavior. Stoicism's approach to overcoming projection. Stoicism offers a powerful remedy to projection through the practice of objectivity and self-awareness. Epictetus taught that we should focus on what is within our control and disregard what is outside of it. Our thoughts and emotions are within our control, but the thoughts and emotions of others are not. By constantly reminding ourselves of this, we can stop assuming that others feel or think the same way we do. To avoid projection, Stoicism encourages us to step outside our own minds and observe situations from an external perspective. Ask yourself, is this really what the other person is thinking, or is this my own internal narrative? This simple question can break the cycle of projection and help you see the situation more clearly. The Stoics also emphasize the importance of self-knowledge. If you don't understand your own emotions and biases, you are more likely to project them onto others. By practicing daily self-reflection, you can identify the emotions and thoughts that you're prone to projecting and work on separating them from your interactions with others. How projection hurts relationships. Projection can be incredibly harmful to relationships because it distorts reality. When you project your own insecurities, fears, or desires onto someone else, you are not seeing them for who they truly are. This creates a barrier to genuine connection. For example, if you assume that your partner is upset with you because you feel guilty about something, you may become defensive or distant. Over time, this behavior can lead to real conflict, even if none existed in the first place. Projection also undermines trust. When you consistently project negative emotions onto someone else, you may begin to believe that they are hiding things from you, or that they have hidden agendas. This erodes the foundation of trust that all healthy relationships are built on. The irony of projection is that it causes us to create the very problems we fear. By assuming the worst in others, we often provoke the negative responses that we were trying to avoid in the first place. Breaking free from projection. Stoicism helps us break free from projection by encouraging us to focus on what we know for sure. This means paying attention to the facts of a situation rather than interpreting it through the lens of our emotions. Marcus Aurelius advised, "If someone is able to show me that what I think or do is not right, I will happily change, for I seek the truth." This openness to being wrong is key to overcoming projection. Instead of assuming that your interpretation of a situation is correct, be willing to question it and seek the truth. Furthermore, Stoicism encourages humility. By recognizing that we don't know everything, we become more open to seeing people as they truly are, rather than as extensions of our own thoughts and feelings. This humility allows us to engage with others more authentically and reduces the tendency to project our internal states onto them. 3. Judgmental thinking. The danger of making snap judgments. Judgmental thinking is one of the most pervasive obstacles to understanding others. Humans are naturally inclined to judge. It's a survival mechanism that helped our ancestors assess threats quickly. However, in the modern world, this instinct often leads to unfair assumptions and snap judgments that damage our relationships. We judge people based on their appearance, behavior, or a single interaction, without fully understanding their background or motives. How judgmental thinking undermines relationships. Judgmental thinking is especially harmful because it shuts down empathy. When we judge someone too quickly, we place them in a box, making it difficult to see them as a whole, complex person. For instance, if you label a coworker as lazy because they missed a deadline, you may fail to see the personal struggles or challenges they are facing. This kind of snap judgment not only prevents you from understanding the full picture, but also fosters a negative and hostile environment. Judgment also leads to confirmation bias, where you start looking for evidence that supports your initial judgment, while ignoring information that contradicts it. If you've decided that someone is arrogant, you will likely interpret everything they say or do through that lens, reinforcing your belief. This can create a cycle of negativity that is hard to break. The Stoic response to judgmental thinking. The Stoics believe that judgment is a major source of suffering, both for ourselves and for others. Epictetus said, "Whoever then would be free, let him wish nothing, let him decline nothing, which depends on others." This statement underscores the importance of not judging or wishing to control others, as their actions are outside of our control. Stoicism teaches us to practice epish, the suspension of judgment. Instead of rushing to label someone as good or bad based on a single interaction, the Stoics advise withholding judgment until you have all the facts. This doesn't mean you should never form opinions, but it does mean that you should be slow to do so and be willing to change your mind when presented with new information. One way to practice this is by cultivating the Stoic mindset of curiosity rather than judgment. When you encounter someone whose behavior frustrates or confuses you, instead of immediately forming a negative opinion, try to understand why they are behaving the way they are. Ask yourself, what might this person be going through that I don't know about? This shift from judgment to curiosity opens the door to empathy and deeper understanding. How judgmental thinking affects your own well-being. Judging others harshly doesn't just harm your relationships. It also affects your own mental and emotional well-being. When you carry judgmental thoughts, you are constantly in a state of tension, always on the lookout for what others are doing wrong. This creates a negative mental environment that drains your energy and makes it harder to experience joy and contentment. Judgmental thinking also isolates you from others. When you view people through the lens of judgment, you create a barrier that prevents genuine connection. The Stoics understood that we are all interconnected, and that empathy and understanding are essential for human flourishing. By letting go of judgmental thinking, we open ourselves up to deeper relationships and a more harmonious life. Overcoming judgmental thinking. To overcome judgmental thinking, Stoicism advises practicing gratitude and compassion. Marcus Aurelius frequently reminded himself that people are flawed, just as he was, and that this shared humanity should be met with kindness, not judgment. He wrote, "Whenever you are about to find fault with someone, ask yourself the following question: what fault of mine most nearly resembles the one I am about to criticize?" This practice not only reduces judgment, but also fosters humility and compassion. By seeing others through a lens of shared humanity rather than judgment, we can build stronger, more empathetic relationships. Instead of rushing to judgment, try to pause and reflect on the fact that everyone is fighting their own battles. This mindset shift will transform how you interact with others and help you build connections based on mutual understanding and respect. Emotional bias, projection, and judgmental thinking are three powerful barriers to understanding others and forming deeper, more meaningful relationships. Each of these tendencies distorts our perception and causes us to react based on our own emotional state or assumptions, rather than the reality of the situation. By embracing Stoic principles such as emotional regulation, objectivity, and the suspension of judgment, we can overcome these challenges and develop a clearer, more empathetic understanding of those around us. Stoicism provides us with practical tools to address these obstacles, helping us cultivate calmness in the face of emotional bias, self-awareness to counter projection, and empathy to replace judgmental thinking. In doing so, we not only improve our ability to read people more accurately, but also create stronger, more harmonious relationships built on trust, understanding, and mutual respect. Remember, as the Stoics teach us, the path to better relationships begins within. By mastering our own emotions, thoughts, and judgments, we pave the way for deeper connections with others. Now that we've explored the common barriers that prevent us from reading people accurately, emotional bias, projection, and judgmental thinking, it's time to reveal a powerful Stoic technique that can help you overcome these challenges. This practice, known as premeditatio malorum, or the premeditation of evils, is a key tool in the Stoic arsenal that prepares the mind for potential difficulties, helping us remain calm, objective, and empathetic in our interactions with others. At first glance, premeditatio malorum might seem like a negative practice. Why would you want to dwell on worst-case scenarios? Isn't that pessimistic? In reality, the Stoics didn't view this as a way to foster negativity, but as a method to cultivate resilience, foresight, and emotional stability. When applied to relationships, it allows you to anticipate challenges and conflicts without becoming overwhelmed by them. Instead of being caught off guard by others' reactions or behaviors, you mentally prepare yourself to handle difficult situations with clarity and grace. In this section, we'll delve into how premeditatio malorum can transform the way you interact with others, help you anticipate misunderstandings, and ultimately foster stronger relationships. By preparing yourself for challenges in this way, you'll be able to navigate the complexities of human emotions with calm and wisdom, leading to more meaningful connections. The foundation of premeditatio malorum, preparing for what's out of your control. At the heart of premeditatio malorum is the Stoic belief that most of life's external events are beyond our control. The Stoics teach that we can only control our thoughts, reactions, and behaviors, not the actions or reactions of others. Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, famously advised, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this, and you will find strength. In the context of relationships, this means that while we cannot control how others behave, we can prepare ourselves to respond wisely, no matter what comes our way. By practicing premeditatio malorum, we envision potential difficulties or emotional challenges that might arise during our interactions with others. This mental preparation helps us avoid being blindsided by conflict, disappointment, or misunderstanding, allowing us to remain composed and act in accordance with our values. Imagine a scenario where you're about to have a difficult conversation with a friend or loved one. Perhaps you need to address a sensitive topic, like a disagreement or a mistake that has caused tension. Before entering the conversation, instead of simply hoping for the best, you use premeditatio malorum to mentally prepare yourself for a range of possible outcomes. What if they become defensive or angry? What if they misunderstand your intentions? What if the conversation becomes emotionally charged and doesn't go as planned? By envisioning these challenges in advance, you train your mind to remain calm in the face of potential conflict. You aren't rehearsing these scenarios out of pessimism or expecting the worst. Rather, you are strengthening your emotional resilience so that if any of these situations do arise, you won't be caught off guard. This allows you to respond thoughtfully instead of reactively, helping you maintain a sense of inner peace and balance. How premeditatio malorum can improve your relationships. When it comes to relationships, emotional preparation is critical. Misunderstandings, disagreements, and emotional reactions are inevitable parts of human interaction. The key to maintaining strong relationships lies not in avoiding these challenges, but in how we respond to them. 1. Anticipating emotional reactions. One of the biggest challenges in relationships is navigating emotional reactions, both your own and those of others. Oftentimes, we go into conversations or interactions with certain expectations, only to be thrown off balance when things don't go as we hoped. Someone might react with anger, frustration, or defensiveness, and without emotional preparation, we can quickly become reactive ourselves, escalating the conflict. By practicing premeditatio malorum, you can anticipate that emotions might flare up and mentally prepare yourself to handle these reactions with calmness. For example, if you're about to discuss a sensitive issue with a friend or family member, take a moment to consider how they might react emotionally. They might get defensive or upset, but by envisioning this possibility in advance, you can remind yourself to stay composed and focused on the issue at hand, rather than getting swept up in their emotional response. This doesn't mean that you expect the worst in people. It simply means that you are prepared for a variety of emotional outcomes. By doing this, you become less emotionally reactive and more capable of maintaining the balance necessary for a productive conversation. This kind of preparation helps you avoid the trap of responding to emotion with more emotion, a pattern that often leads to escalation rather than resolution. 2. Managing disappointment. Disappointment is another common experience in relationships. We often enter situations with certain expectations, whether it's how someone should behave, respond, or communicate, and when those expectations aren't met, we feel let down. Disappointment can strain relationships, especially if we allow it to build up over time without addressing it. Premeditatio malorum teaches us to anticipate the possibility of disappointment and mentally prepare for it. Before entering a conversation or interaction, you can reflect on the fact that the other person might not respond the way you hope. They might not understand your perspective, or they might not provide the reassurance or validation you're seeking. By preparing for this possibility, you shield yourself from the emotional blow of unmet expectations. When disappointment arises, instead of feeling blindsided or hurt, you can remind yourself that this was a possibility you had already considered. This emotional preparation allows you to respond with understanding and empathy rather than frustration or resentment. Over time, this practice helps build emotional resilience, enabling you to handle disappointments with grace and patience, without allowing them to erode the foundation of your relationships. 3. Reducing emotional reactivity. Perhaps one of the most valuable benefits of premeditatio malorum is that it reduces emotional reactivity. Emotional reactivity is when we respond impulsively, often without thinking, to a situation that triggers us emotionally. This can take the form of anger, frustration, or defensiveness, all of which can lead to further misunderstandings and damage relationships. By mentally rehearsing potential challenges before they arise, you train your mind to respond calmly and thoughtfully, even in difficult situations. When emotions flare up, instead of reacting impulsively, you can take a step back, assess the situation, and choose a response that aligns with your values and long-term goals for the relationship. For example, let's say you're in a heated argument with a partner. Instead of allowing the emotional intensity of the moment to dictate your response, premeditatio malorum equips you with the mental fortitude to pause, breathe, and reflect before speaking. This pause creates space for thoughtful communication rather than reactive outbursts, which often escalate the conflict. Over time, this ability to regulate your emotional reactions leads to more productive, respectful, and understanding conversations. Practical steps to implement premeditatio malorum in relationships. Let's break down how you can apply this Stoic technique to your own life, particularly in the context of improving your relationships. Here are some practical steps to incorporate premeditatio malorum into your daily interactions. 1. Set aside time for reflection. Before any significant conversation or interaction, whether it's a work meeting, a discussion with a partner, or a difficult conversation with a friend, take a few moments to reflect on the possible challenges that might arise. Think about how the person might react and how you can prepare yourself emotionally for these reactions. What are the potential emotional triggers in this conversation? How might the other person react based on their personality, mood, or stress levels? What is the worst-case scenario, and how can I handle it with calm and empathy? By reflecting on these questions, you train yourself to stay calm in the face of emotional volatility. This reflection doesn't have to take a long time. Just a few minutes of mindful consideration can make a significant difference in how you approach the conversation. 2. Mentally rehearse your responses. Once you've considered the potential challenges, mentally rehearse how you will respond to each scenario. Imagine the person becoming upset or defensive, and visualize yourself staying calm and composed. Practice using empathetic language and non-reactive responses. For example, if you anticipate that someone might become defensive, mentally prepare yourself to say something like, "I understand this is a sensitive topic, and I'm here to listen and understand your perspective." This mental rehearsal builds emotional resilience, so that when the situation arises, you're less likely to be caught off guard and more likely to respond with thoughtfulness. 3. Practice emotional distancing. Another key aspect of premeditatio malorum is the practice of emotional distancing. This means separating yourself from the emotions of the moment and viewing the situation from a more objective perspective. Marcus Aurelius often reminded himself to view things as they are, rather than through the lens of his emotions. In relationships, emotional distancing helps you avoid taking things personally. For example, if someone reacts with anger or frustration, remind yourself that their reaction is a reflection of their emotional state, not a reflection of your worth or the validity of your perspective. By distancing yourself emotionally, you can maintain clarity and focus on the issue at hand, rather than getting swept up in the emotional intensity of the moment. 4. Reflect on past challenges. To further strengthen your practice of premeditatio malorum, spend time reflecting on past relationship challenges. Think about times when conflicts arose and how you reacted. Ask yourself, what could I have anticipated more clearly? How might I have responded differently if I had practiced premeditatio malorum? What emotional triggers led to reactivity? And how can I manage them better in the future? This reflection helps you identify patterns in your relationships and equips you with the foresight to handle similar situations more effectively moving forward. 5. Use it as a preventative measure. Lastly, premeditatio malorum can be used not only as a preparation tool for difficult conversations, but also as a preventative measure in everyday interactions. By regularly reflecting on potential challenges and preparing yourself emotionally, you become more resilient to the ups and downs of relationships. This ongoing practice fosters a mindset of emotional stability and preparedness, helping you build stronger, more empathetic connections with others. The long-term impact of premeditatio malorum on relationships. When you consistently practice premeditatio malorum, the long-term benefits in your relationships are profound. You become more emotionally resilient, better able to handle conflict, and more skilled at reading people without letting your emotions cloud your judgment. By mentally preparing yourself for challenges in relationships, you develop a calm and steady approach to communication, which fosters trust and understanding. Over time, this leads to deeper, more meaningful connections, because you are better equipped to navigate the complexities of human interaction without being reactive or defensive. In essence, premeditatio malorum empowers you to approach relationships with wisdom and foresight. Instead of fearing conflict or emotional volatility, you embrace the opportunity to engage thoughtfully and empathetically, knowing that you are prepared for whatever may come. This Stoic practice not only improves your relationships, but also helps you cultivate a sense of inner peace, knowing that you can handle life's challenges with calmness and clarity. Premeditatio malorum is a powerful Stoic technique that helps us prepare for the inevitable difficulties that arise in our relationships. By mentally rehearsing potential challenges and emotional reactions, we equip ourselves with the tools to remain calm, empathetic, and thoughtful, no matter what situation arises. When applied consistently, this practice transforms the way we interact with others, allowing us to build stronger, more resilient relationships based on understanding and mutual respect. By embracing the wisdom of premeditatio malorum, you can navigate the complexities of human emotions with grace and wisdom, leading to deeper and more fulfilling connections with the people in your life. Stories resonate with us because they make abstract principles real and relatable. We all know that emotions can get the best of us, leading to misunderstandings and conflict. But Stoicism can help us regain control and clarity in relationships. To bring these Stoic concepts to life, let's explore how both a famous figure and a seemingly ordinary person applied Stoic techniques, particularly premeditatio malorum, to transform their interactions with others. Celebrity connection. How George Washington used Stoicism to build trust and lead effectively. Let's start with an example from history. George Washington, the first president of the United States and a key figure in the American Revolutionary War. While Washington is often celebrated for his military and political achievements, fewer people know that he was also deeply influenced by Stoic philosophy. His ability to remain composed under pressure and navigate the complexities of human relationships was rooted in the Stoic principles he practiced throughout his life. Washington faced countless challenges that required not only strategic thinking, but also an exceptional ability to read people. Whether it was navigating delicate relationships with fellow military leaders, maintaining the loyalty of his troops, or engaging in diplomacy with foreign nations, Washington's success hinged on his ability to remain calm, anticipate challenges, and respond with measured wisdom. One of the key Stoic techniques Washington used was a form of premeditatio malorum. Before entering any major decision or conversation, Washington would mentally prepare himself for the worst-case scenario. For example, during the harsh winter at Valley Forge, his soldiers were starving, poorly equipped, and on the brink of mutiny. Washington knew that his leadership would be tested, and rather than assuming that everything would go according to plan, he anticipated the worst possible outcomes: desertion, loss of morale, and even betrayal by some of his closest allies. By preparing himself mentally for these challenges, Washington was able to remain calm and composed when problems inevitably arose. Instead of reacting emotionally to the despair and frustration of his troops, he maintained a steady hand, providing the reassurance and leadership they needed to persevere. His ability to anticipate these hardships and respond with Stoic calmness helped him build trust among his men, who came to see him as a leader who could weather any storm. Washington's use of Stoicism extended to his diplomatic relationships as well. During the early years of the new nation, he often had to manage conflicting interests among his advisors and foreign diplomats. Rather than letting his emotions dictate his responses, Washington practiced detachment, focusing on what was within his control, his own actions and words, while preparing for the unpredictable reactions of others. This Stoic approach allowed him to navigate volatile political situations without compromising his principles or losing his composure. Washington's application of premeditatio malorum teaches us an important lesson. When we mentally prepare for the challenges that others may present, whether it's emotional outbursts, misunderstandings, or opposition, we become better equipped to handle those situations with grace. Instead of being reactive, we can respond thoughtfully, preserving both our integrity and our relationships. Now let's shift to a more relatable, everyday example, someone like you or me who used Stoicism to completely transform their relationships. Meet Sarah, a marketing manager in her mid-30s. On the surface, Sarah had it all: a successful career, a solid group of friends, and a loving partner. But beneath the surface, she struggled with emotional volatility, particularly in her relationships at work and at home. Sarah found herself constantly reacting to situations emotionally. If her boss criticized her work, she would take it personally, becoming defensive or upset. At home, if her partner seemed distant or preoccupied, Sarah would immediately assume something was wrong in the relationship, leading to unnecessary arguments. These emotional reactions were wearing her down, causing stress and strain in both her personal and professional life. One day, after a particularly heated argument with her partner over something trivial, Sarah realized she needed to make a change. She had come across Stoic philosophy in a self-development podcast and decided to dive deeper into its teachings. The concept of premeditatio malorum stood out to her. This idea of mentally preparing for challenges before they arise felt like a lifeline. Sarah began practicing premeditatio malorum before difficult conversations and situations at work. For example, before a meeting with her boss, she would imagine the worst-case scenario. What if he didn't like her proposal? What if he criticized her work? What if he became dismissive or condescending? By mentally rehearsing these potential outcomes, Sarah trained herself to remain calm and composed, no matter what happened. The next time her boss gave her critical feedback, instead of reacting defensively, Sarah listened calmly. She reminded herself that criticism was not a personal attack, but an opportunity for growth. This simple mental preparation helped Sarah stay focused on the feedback itself, rather than getting lost in her emotional reactions. Over time, she noticed a significant improvement in her professional relationships. Her boss, who had once seen her as overly sensitive, began to trust her more and even gave her more responsibility because of her newfound emotional resilience. But it wasn't just at work where premeditatio malorum made a difference. At home, Sarah applied the same technique with her partner. Before starting conversations about difficult topics like finances or future plans, she would take a moment to reflect on how her partner might react. She mentally prepared herself for potential frustration, disagreement, or emotional distance. Instead of becoming defensive or accusatory, Sarah approached these conversations with empathy and understanding. One night, Sarah's partner came home from work, clearly stressed. In the past, Sarah would have immediately assumed the worst, that he was upset with her, or that something was wrong in their relationship. But now, thanks to her practice of premeditatio malorum, Sarah took a step back. She reminded herself that her partner's mood was likely unrelated to her, and decided to ask calmly how his day had gone. Instead of reacting emotionally, she listened attentively as he vented about a tough day at work. This simple shift, focusing on his needs rather than her own emotional response, completely transformed the dynamic of their relationship. Her partner felt heard and supported, and Sarah didn't spiral into unnecessary worry or frustration. Over time, their relationship grew stronger because of her ability to remain calm and present, even in moments of emotional intensity. How premeditatio malorum transformed Sarah's life. As Sarah continued to integrate premeditatio malorum into her daily life, the effects were profound. Not only did her relationships at work and home improve, but she also noticed a deeper sense of inner peace. She no longer felt like she was on an emotional roller coaster, reacting to every little thing that went wrong. Instead, she approached challenges with a calm and measured mindset, knowing that she had already prepared herself for whatever might come. One day, Sarah faced what could have been a major crisis at work. A major client had suddenly pulled out of a campaign, and her team was in a panic. In the past, Sarah might have joined in the chaos, overwhelmed by the pressure and fear of failure. But this time she paused. She had already practiced premeditatio malorum, mentally preparing herself for the possibility of setbacks in the project. She reminded herself that while she couldn't control the client's decision, she could control her response. With a calm mind, Sarah gathered her team, reassured them, and began working on solutions. Her ability to remain composed under pressure not only impressed her colleagues, but also helped the team navigate the crisis more effectively. In the end, they were able to salvage the campaign by pivoting to a new strategy, and Sarah's reputation as a leader grew stronger. In her personal life, the benefits were just as noticeable. Her relationship with her partner became more harmonious. By preparing herself for the emotional ups and downs of life, Sarah was able to engage in difficult conversations without letting her emotions cloud her judgment. The arguments that once seemed to escalate out of control became fewer and far less intense. Sarah's partner even noticed the change, commenting on how much more patient and understanding she had become. This transformation didn't happen overnight. It took time, practice, and patience. But through the consistent application of Stoic principles, especially premeditatio malorum, Sarah was able to change the way she approached not just relationships, but life itself. She learned to expect challenges without being afraid of them, to prepare for the worst without being consumed by it, and to navigate even the most difficult situations with a sense of calm and control. Bringing the story home, how you can apply Stoicism like Sarah. Sarah's story is a powerful reminder that you don't have to be a famous historical figure, like George Washington, to benefit from Stoic philosophy. Everyday people, just like you, can use these timeless principles to improve their lives and relationships. If you find yourself reacting emotionally in conversations, feeling overwhelmed by conflict, or struggling to maintain calm in challenging situations, consider applying premeditatio malorum. Take a moment before any difficult conversation or interaction to mentally rehearse the possible challenges. Ask yourself, how might this person react emotionally? What is the worst-case scenario, and how can I respond calmly? What emotions am I bringing into this conversation, and how can I manage them? By preparing yourself in this way, you'll find that the emotional intensity of these interactions decreases. You won't be caught off guard by someone's reaction or overwhelmed by disappointment. Instead, you'll be ready, calm, composed, and fully present in the moment. Stoicism isn't just a philosophy for ancient sages or world leaders. It's a practical guide for living a better life, here and now. Whether you're facing challenges in your relationships, at work, or in everyday interactions, Stoicism offers the tools to navigate these situations with wisdom, patience, and emotional resilience. Just like Sarah, you can transform your relationships by applying Stoic principles like premeditatio malorum. By mentally preparing yourself for the challenges that may arise, you'll be able to approach difficult situations with a clear mind and calm heart, avoiding emotional reactivity and fostering deeper, more meaningful connections. So how will you begin using premeditatio malorum in your own life? So how can you use Stoicism to read people and build stronger relationships? Start by practicing emotional regulation. When you learn to manage your own emotions, you're better equipped to observe others objectively. Develop the skill of empathetic listening and nonverbal awareness, being fully present in your conversations. And don't forget the power of premeditatio malorum, a technique that can prepare you for challenges in relationships by helping you anticipate reactions and maintain calm. Stoicism isn't just about reading others, it's about connecting with them on a deeper level by being grounded, patient, and empathetic. These principles not only help you better understand others, but also create a foundation for trust and meaningful connections. With Stoic philosophy, you can approach every interaction with clarity, self-control, and compassion. Now it's your turn. What Stoic technique will you apply in your relationships? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you found this video helpful, don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and ring the notification bell for more insights into how Stoicism can improve your personal and professional life. By subscribing, you help grow our community of Stoic learners, and together, we can make Stoicism a tool for better relationships and a more fulfilling life. Thanks for watching. Feeling overwhelmed by daily stress? Discover how the timeless wisdom of Stoicism can transform your life with just a few simple practices. In this section, we will explore 3 significant areas where stress often dominates: work overload, personal relationships, and future uncertainties. Each of these topics presents unique challenges, yet the Stoic philosophy provides us with timeless strategies to face these struggles head-on. In today's competitive world, many of us are overwhelmed by work. From tight deadlines to increasing responsibilities, the modern workplace demands more than ever before. For many, this constant pressure to perform leads to chronic stress, burnout, and a pervasive sense of fatigue. According to recent studies, nearly 40% of workers in the US report feeling overworked, with many citing long hours, unrealistic expectations, and insufficient support as contributing factors. So how does this play out in everyday life? Imagine you're at work and your boss assigns you a new project with a looming deadline. Before you've even finished digesting that information, another task lands on your desk. In a short time, you find yourself juggling multiple high-priority assignments, responding to emails, attending meetings, and answering phone calls, all while trying to maintain the quality of your work. The feeling of overwhelm builds, and soon, you're working late into the night, skipping meals, and sacrificing sleep just to keep up. Work overload doesn't just lead to physical exhaustion. It also wears down our mental and emotional health. Burnout, defined by the World Health Organization as a syndrome resulting from chronic workplace stress, is increasingly common. Symptoms include emotional exhaustion, depersonalization, and a reduced sense of personal accomplishment. You might feel trapped in a cycle of productivity, where no matter how much you do, it never feels like enough. The constant pressure to perform can also lead to imposter syndrome, a feeling that you're not truly competent or qualified for your role, despite evidence to the contrary. You might find yourself questioning your abilities, fearing that at any moment, others will discover you're not as capable as they think. This fear of being exposed as a fraud drives many to push themselves even harder, adding to the already heavy workload. The result of all this? Chronic stress becomes your constant companion. Even when you're not at work, you think about work. You wake up in the middle of the night, worried about that unfinished report or that client meeting tomorrow morning. Your personal time dwindles, and even your vacations are filled with anxiety about what awaits you when you return. Over time, this not only impacts your professional life, but also your physical health, relationships, and overall happiness. But why do we let work control our lives like this? Much of it comes from a societal belief that productivity equals self-worth. Many of us are conditioned to believe that the harder we work, the more valuable we are. We tie our sense of success and identity to our job performance, leaving little room for rest or balance. This can create a vicious cycle where we push ourselves to the brink of exhaustion in pursuit of validation, and external achievements. However, Stoicism offers a different perspective. The Stoics teach that we should not focus on external achievements or approval, but rather on our internal virtues and effort. Marcus Aurelius famously wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." In other words, while we may not be able to control the demands of our job, we can control how we respond to them. A practical Stoic approach to handling work overload is to focus on the dichotomy of control. Separate the things you can control, your actions, your attitude, your focus, from the things you cannot control, like your boss's demands, deadlines, or the company's performance. When you shift your attention to what you can influence, you regain a sense of agency, which can reduce feelings of overwhelm. Additionally, setting boundaries is essential in managing work overload. Learn to say no when the workload becomes excessive, or at the very least, communicate clearly with your superiors about what is feasible within the given time frame. Prioritize tasks that align with your long-term goals and values, and don't be afraid to delegate when possible. Remember that working yourself into the ground is not a mark of success. It's a sign that you're not taking care of yourself, which ultimately harms both your productivity and well-being. Stress in personal relationships can be just as debilitating, if not more so, than work-related stress. Whether it's conflicts with family members, misunderstandings with friends, or tension in romantic partnerships, relationship stress can deeply affect our emotional state and mental clarity. For many people, navigating the complexities of personal relationships is a significant source of daily stress. At the heart of relationship stress is often a desire to control the other person's thoughts, behaviors, or emotions. We might expect our partners to behave a certain way, hope that friends will always agree with us, or feel frustrated when family members don't meet our expectations. This desire for control is a natural human tendency, but it's also a major cause of stress because in reality, we have no control over how others think or act. The Stoics understood this well. Epictetus said, "It is not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." This idea is critical when it comes to personal relationships. Imagine a common scenario. You've had a disagreement with your partner. You both walk away from the conversation feeling hurt and misunderstood. Later, as you replay the argument in your head, you wish your partner had said something different or acted in a way that made you feel more validated. This rumination causes stress and anxiety because you're focusing on what you cannot change, their words or actions in the past. Another common source of relationship stress is communication breakdowns. Misunderstandings happen when we assume others know how we feel or expect them to respond in a way that aligns with our needs, without explicitly communicating those needs. When the other person doesn't meet these unspoken expectations, we feel disappointed, angry, or hurt. Friendships can also become a source of stress, especially when there's a lack of balance in the give-and-take dynamic. You might feel like you're always the one putting in the effort, making plans, or supporting the other person, without receiving the same in return. Over time, this imbalance can lead to resentment and emotional exhaustion. Family relationships often carry their own set of challenges, especially when long-standing patterns of behavior are involved. Whether it's sibling rivalry, parental expectations, or conflicts with extended family, these relationships can be emotionally charged and difficult to navigate. The pressure to meet family expectations or manage complex dynamics can be a heavy burden, leading to ongoing stress and anxiety. So how do we apply Stoicism to these relationship challenges? First, we must remember the dichotomy of control. You cannot control how others think, feel, or behave. You can only control your own actions and reactions. If someone responds to you with anger or criticism, it's within your control to remain calm, measured, and understanding. By choosing your response mindfully, you take charge of your emotional state and reduce unnecessary conflict. Another important Stoic concept is sympathy. Stoics believe that all humans are connected, and we should approach others with compassion and understanding. This doesn't mean accepting bad behavior, but it does mean recognizing that everyone is fighting their own battles, often ones we know nothing about. Approaching relationships with empathy can help diffuse tension and promote healthier, more supportive interactions. Finally, clear communication is key to reducing stress in relationships. Many misunderstandings arise from unspoken expectations or assumptions. Practicing assertive communication, where you express your needs clearly, without blaming or shaming, can prevent conflict from escalating. Rather than expecting others to read your mind, be proactive in discussing your feelings and boundaries. One of the most universal sources of stress is the fear of the unknown. The future is inherently uncertain, and for many people, this uncertainty causes anxiety. Whether it's worrying about financial stability, health, career progression, or even global events, the weight of future uncertainties can become overwhelming. At the root of this stress is often the belief that we can or should have control over the future. We plan, strategize, and worry in an attempt to minimize risk and ensure the best possible outcome. However, as the Stoics teach us, the future is largely out of our control. While we can take steps to prepare for what's to come, we cannot predict or control every outcome. This realization is key to reducing stress about the future. One of the most common future-related stressors is financial anxiety. Whether it's worrying about paying bills, saving for retirement, or providing for a family, financial concerns weigh heavily on many people. Even those who are financially stable may experience stress, fearing that an economic downturn or personal misfortune could suddenly change their circumstances. Health concerns are another major source of future anxiety. As we age, it's natural to worry about our health or the health of our loved ones. Many people find themselves preoccupied with the fear of illness or injury, especially when they see others around them facing these challenges. This anxiety can lead to hypervigilance about minor symptoms or a constant fear that something catastrophic is on the horizon. Career uncertainties also contribute to stress about the future. Whether you're worried about losing your job, struggling to advance in your career, or uncertain about the direction you want to take, the pressure to succeed can feel immense. The fear of making the wrong decision or missing out on opportunities often leads to sleepless nights and second-guessing. Even global events such as climate change, political instability, or pandemics can contribute to feelings of helplessness and anxiety about the future. When faced with these large-scale issues, it's easy to feel powerless and overwhelmed by the sheer scale of the problems we face. But here's the Stoic solution. Instead of trying to control the future, focus on preparing yourself for it. As Seneca said, true happiness is to enjoy the present without anxious dependence upon the future. The future will unfold as it will, and while you cannot control it, you can control your actions in the present moment. By focusing on what you can do today, you not only reduce your anxiety, but also position yourself to handle whatever the future brings. A key Stoic practice to help with future uncertainties is premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils. This involves imagining worst-case scenarios not to dwell in negativity, but to mentally prepare for challenges. By visualizing potential difficulties, you reduce their emotional impact if they do occur. This practice helps you realize that even if things don't go as planned, you have the resilience and strength to handle them. Another helpful Stoic concept is fate acceptance, or amor fati, the love of fate. This means accepting whatever happens as part of the natural course of life, and rather than resisting it, embracing it. When you learn to accept that not everything will go your way, you free yourself from the constant anxiety of trying to control every outcome. Ultimately, the key to overcoming stress about the future is learning to trust in your ability to handle challenges as they come. You may not know what tomorrow holds, but with the Stoic principles of preparation, acceptance, and resilience. You can face the future with confidence, knowing that whatever happens, you'll be ready. Now that we've discussed the major stressors of work overload, personal relationships, and future uncertainties, let's dive deeper into how Stoicism provides practical tools to manage and overcome these challenges. Stoicism is not just a philosophy of thought. It is a philosophy of action. The Stoics focused on living virtuously by aligning their actions with their core principles, which can be especially powerful when dealing with stress. Here, we will explore 5 key Stoic principles and practices that you can incorporate into your life to reduce stress and build resilience. 1. The dichotomy of control. 2. Practice of negative visualization, premeditatio malorum. 3. Mindfulness and presence. 4. Embracing voluntary discomfort. 5. Setting boundaries. At the heart of Stoicism lies the dichotomy of control, the idea that the key to inner peace is understanding what we can and cannot control. Epictetus summarized this principle perfectly when he said, "Some things are within our power, while others are not." Within our power are opinion, motivation, desire, aversion, and in a word, whatever is of our own doing. Not within our power are our body, our property, reputation, office, and in a word, whatever is not of our own doing. This simple idea can have profound effects on how we handle stress. When we feel stressed, it's usually because we are trying to control something that is outside our influence. Whether it's trying to manage how other people think or behave, control the outcome of situations, or prevent the future from unfolding in unexpected ways, the attempt to exert control where it doesn't exist is a guaranteed source of frustration and anxiety. Stoicism teaches us to let go of these external concerns and focus only on what is within our control, our actions, thoughts, and responses. Imagine this in a work setting. You may be facing a demanding project with tight deadlines and a boss who is constantly pushing for more. Most of us instinctively focus on the pressures and expectations that come from outside. We feel stressed because we are worried about how our performance will be perceived, whether our work will meet the boss's expectations, and what consequences might arise if we fall short. But the Stoic way is to shift focus from these external pressures, things beyond our control, to what we can control, our effort, focus, and the quality of the work we put in. Practical application. Each morning, take a few minutes to reflect on what lies within your control for the day. Write down your main stressors and divide them into 2 columns, one for things you can control, and another for things you can't. The first column might include your work ethic, your attitude toward challenges, and your response to setbacks. The second column will likely include things like the reactions of your coworkers, changes in company policy, or economic factors. By recognizing the limits of your control, you'll stop wasting energy on the things you can't influence, and instead focus on what you can change. In relationships, the dichotomy of control can similarly reduce stress. We often feel anxious or frustrated because we want others to behave in a certain way. For example, you might want your partner to express affection more frequently, or you might wish a friend would stop canceling plans. While it's natural to desire certain behaviors from others, Stoicism teaches us that we cannot control how other people think, feel, or act. We can only control how we react to them. This doesn't mean passively accepting poor behavior. Instead, it encourages us to communicate clearly and make decisions based on our values, without getting caught up in how others might respond. By focusing on what we can control, our actions, decisions, and reactions, we build resilience. We stop wasting energy on external factors and begin to manage our inner world. The result is greater peace of mind and a significant reduction in stress. One of the most counterintuitive but powerful Stoic practices is negative visualization, or premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils. It involves imagining worst-case scenarios in order to mentally prepare for potential difficulties. While this might seem like it would increase anxiety, in reality, it has the opposite effect. By confronting your fears head-on, you reduce the power they have over you. Modern life is filled with uncertainties. Whether it's a presentation at work, an important exam, or a family gathering where conflicts might arise, we often experience stress because of our fear of what might go wrong. Negative visualization helps us desensitize ourselves to these fears by imagining how we would handle worst-case scenarios. This practice doesn't mean dwelling on negativity or catastrophizing. Rather, it helps us recognize that even if things go wrong, we are capable of managing the outcomes. Consider a common stressor: public speaking. Many people fear standing in front of an audience, worrying about forgetting their speech, making mistakes, or embarrassing themselves. Negative visualization encourages you to imagine the worst thing that could happen. Perhaps you stumble over a word, or your mind goes blank. Visualize that moment, then imagine how you would recover. Maybe you take a deep breath, make a joke about it, and continue. By rehearsing this mentally, you prepare yourself not only for success, but also for failure, making the possibility of mistakes less frightening. Another benefit of negative visualization is that it cultivates gratitude. When we imagine life without certain comforts or privileges, we become more appreciative of what we have. For example, think about how you would feel if you lost your job tomorrow. You might picture the financial strain, the uncertainty of finding new employment, or the stress of explaining it to your family. But after imagining this scenario, you also recognize how fortunate you are to have a job now, even with its challenges. This gratitude reduces stress by shifting your focus from what could go wrong to the positives in your life. Practical application. Try practicing negative visualization regularly. Before a big event, take a few minutes to sit quietly and visualize what could go wrong. Imagine how you would react if the worst happened. How would you cope? What resources or strengths would you draw on? By doing this, you become mentally prepared, which reduces anxiety and increases confidence in your ability to handle adversity. In personal relationships, negative visualization can be equally helpful. For example, if you're entering a difficult conversation with a family member, imagine the conversation going poorly. What would you do if they became defensive or angry? How could you respond in a calm and composed manner? By anticipating the worst, you prepare yourself to remain centered, no matter the outcome. Mindfulness, the practice of being fully present in the moment, is an essential part of Stoic philosophy. Marcus Aurelius, in his meditations, frequently reminded himself to live in the present, writing, "Confine yourself to the present." Stress often arises when we're caught up in regrets about the past or anxieties about the future, both of which are beyond our control. Stoicism teaches us that peace of mind comes from focusing on the here and now. When we're stressed, our minds tend to race. We replay past mistakes, worry about future outcomes, and get stuck in a loop of anxiety. This mental clutter distracts us from what's happening right in front of us. By practicing mindfulness, we train ourselves to focus our attention on the present moment, allowing us to engage more fully with our surroundings and reduce the mental noise that contributes to stress. Practical application. One way to cultivate mindfulness is through daily meditation. Set aside 5 to 10 minutes each day to sit quietly and focus on your breath. When your mind starts to wander, gently bring your attention back to your breathing. This practice strengthens your ability to focus and helps calm an overactive mind. With time, you'll find that this mindfulness carries over into other areas of your life, making you less reactive to stress and more attuned to the present moment. You can also practice mindfulness throughout the day by engaging in simple activities with full attention. Whether you're eating a meal, walking, or washing the dishes, focus entirely on the task at hand. Pay attention to the sensations, sounds, and movements involved. By anchoring yourself in the present, you reduce the tendency to overthink or worry about other concerns. Mindfulness is especially useful in moments of high stress. When you feel overwhelmed, take a moment to pause and ground yourself in the present. Focus on your breath, the sensations in your body, or the sounds around you. This simple act of bringing your awareness back to the moment helps interrupt the cycle of stress and brings clarity to your thoughts. In relationships, mindfulness can improve communication and reduce misunderstandings. Often, conflicts arise because we're not fully listening to the other person. Instead, we're caught up in our own thoughts or preparing our next response. Practicing mindfulness in conversations, being fully present, listening attentively, and responding thoughtfully can reduce tension and improve your connection with others. One of the most distinctive aspects of Stoic philosophy is the practice of embracing discomfort. The Stoics believed that by deliberately exposing ourselves to small discomforts, we build resilience and reduce our fear of hardship. This practice is known as voluntary discomfort. In modern life, we are conditioned to seek comfort at all times. We avoid anything that feels unpleasant or challenging, whether it's physical discomfort, emotional vulnerability, or difficult conversations. However, by constantly seeking comfort, we become more fragile and less capable of handling stress. Stoicism teaches that by facing discomfort head-on, we not only strengthen our character, but also reduce our fear of future challenges. Practical application. You can begin practicing voluntary discomfort by making small changes in your daily routine. For example, try taking a cold shower in the morning, fasting for a short period, or walking instead of driving. These small discomforts may seem trivial, but over time, they build mental toughness. When you learn to handle discomfort voluntarily, you become more confident in your ability to face unexpected difficulties. In a broader sense, voluntary discomfort applies to emotional challenges as well. For instance, if you tend to avoid difficult conversations because they make you uncomfortable, start by addressing smaller issues. Gradually, you'll become more comfortable with vulnerability and confrontation, which reduces the stress associated with these situations. This practice can also be applied to work-related stress. If you fear failure or rejection, deliberately seek out opportunities where you might fail, whether it's pitching a bold idea or applying for a job that seems out of reach. By facing the possibility of failure, you desensitize yourself to the fear of it, which reduces stress in the long run. One of the most overlooked contributors to stress is the lack of boundaries. Many of us feel overwhelmed because we take on too many responsibilities or allow others to dictate how we spend our time and energy. Stoicism teaches the importance of setting clear boundaries to protect our well-being and maintain our sense of purpose. Setting boundaries means learning to say no to things that don't align with your values or priorities. It also means protecting your time, energy, and mental space from unnecessary distractions or demands. Many people struggle with this because they fear disappointing others or being perceived as uncooperative. However, Stoicism encourages us to focus on living according to our own principles rather than seeking external validation. Practical application. Start by identifying the areas in your life where your boundaries are weakest. Are you constantly taking on extra work because you're afraid to say no? Do you allow others to interrupt your personal time or dictate how you spend your days? Once you've identified these areas, practice setting small, manageable boundaries. For example, you might start by turning off your work email notifications after a certain time in the evening, or declining invitations that don't serve your well-being. Setting boundaries also involves being clear and direct in your communication. If you need time for yourself, express that need calmly and assertively. Let others know when you are available and when you are not. Over time, as you reinforce these boundaries, you'll find that you have more control over your time and less stress from external demands. Boundaries are not just about saying no to others. They're also about saying yes to yourself. By setting limits on what you're willing to take on, you create space for the activities and relationships that truly matter to you. This not only reduces stress, but also enhances your overall well-being. In relationships, boundaries are crucial for maintaining healthy dynamics. Without clear boundaries, relationships can become imbalanced, with one person feeling overburdened or unappreciated. By setting and communicating boundaries, you create a foundation of mutual respect, which reduces stress and enhances the quality of your interactions. By integrating these Stoic practices into your life, you can significantly reduce stress and cultivate a more resilient, mindful, and empowered approach to daily challenges. Whether it's focusing on what you can control, practicing mindfulness, or setting boundaries, each of these principles helps you navigate life's difficulties with greater clarity and inner peace. In Stoicism, the moment of transformation, when the philosophy truly shifts from theory into a way of life, comes from understanding that we are responsible for how we respond to every situation. This realization is the key to unlocking freedom from stress. The power of Stoicism lies in its ability to reframe how we perceive the world, especially the events that we initially find stressful or overwhelming. At the heart of this philosophy is the idea that stress isn't caused by external circumstances themselves, but by our thoughts and judgments about those circumstances. The Stoics believe that nothing is inherently good or bad. It's our perceptions that create value. This principle is rooted in a famous line from Epictetus: "Men are disturbed not by things, but by the views they take of them." This brings us to the most critical insight of Stoic practice. Stress is not something that happens to you, but something that happens within you. The moment you internalize this, you begin to realize how much control you truly have over your emotional well-being. The realization: you control your reactions. Imagine you're stuck in traffic on your way to an important meeting. The stress starts to build as minutes tick by, and you realize you'll be late. Your mind begins racing, thinking about how your boss might react, how your colleagues might perceive you, and how this could impact your career. The situation feels unbearable, but Stoicism offers an alternative view. A Stoic would pause and reflect on what is within their control and what is not. In this case, you cannot control the traffic, the behavior of other drivers, or even the outcome of the meeting once you arrive. What you can control is how you choose to react to the situation. You can either allow stress to dominate your emotions, or you can decide to accept the situation calmly and take practical steps, like calling ahead to let your colleagues know you'll be late. This is the crux of Stoicism's power: reframing your response. Rather than letting external circumstances dictate your emotional state, you regain your agency by focusing on your reaction. The Stoics teach that it's not the external events themselves that create stress, but our judgment of them. By shifting how we interpret events, we change our experience of them. In moments of stress, acceptance becomes a key tool. The Stoics practiced amor fati, or love of fate, which is the idea that we should embrace everything that happens as a necessary part of life. Instead of resisting reality, they encouraged acceptance, welcoming whatever happens, whether it's good or bad, as an opportunity for growth. How to apply this? The next time you're faced with a stressful situation, pause and ask yourself these key questions. Is this event within my control or outside of my control? If it's outside my control, what can I control about my response? How can I accept this event as a part of life, rather than resisting it? This reframing not only reduces stress, but also empowers you to take action where it matters most on your internal state, rather than on trying to control the uncontrollable. Embracing reality. Amor fati. One of the most liberating practices in Stoicism is amor fati, the love of fate. This concept takes the idea of acceptance even further by suggesting that we should not only accept what happens to us but actively embrace it. The Stoics believe that everything in life happens for a reason, even the hardships and difficulties. These challenges are opportunities for growth and self-improvement. Let's go back to the example of being stuck in traffic. In a state of stress, your natural inclination might be to wish things were different, to wish that the traffic wasn't there, or that you had left earlier. But what if, instead of resisting the situation, you could accept it fully and even view it as a positive moment? A Stoic practicing amor fati would view the traffic as a chance to practice patience, mindfulness, and presence. Maybe this delay gives you a few extra minutes to listen to a podcast you enjoy, or to reflect on the day ahead. The Stoic mindset transforms what could be a negative, stressful experience into a neutral, or even positive one, by embracing the reality of the situation, rather than fighting against it. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "A blazing fire makes flame and brightness out of everything that is thrown into it." In this sense, everything that life throws your way, no matter how difficult, can be fuel for your growth. Stress arises when we resist reality, wishing things were different. But when we embrace reality, we allow ourselves to move through life with more grace and less frustration. How to apply this? To practice amor fati in your life, start by embracing small inconveniences as opportunities for growth. If you spill your coffee in the morning or forget your keys, instead of reacting with frustration, use it as a chance to build patience. Over time, this practice strengthens your ability to handle larger stressors with the same calm acceptance. Releasing attachment to outcomes. Another key moment of transformation in Stoicism comes from releasing our attachment to specific outcomes. So much of our stress stems from a fixation on how we think things should turn out. Whether it's in our careers, relationships, or personal achievements, we create stress by clinging to expectations and being unwilling to accept alternative outcomes. Consider the example of a job interview. You might prepare diligently, present yourself well, and leave the interview feeling confident. However, the decision of whether you get the job is ultimately outside of your control. If you become overly attached to the idea of getting the job, you might spend the following days or weeks filled with anxiety, overanalyzing the interview and worrying about the outcome. The Stoic approach is to focus on the effort, not the result. You can control how well you prepare for the interview, how you conduct yourself during it, and how you follow up afterward. But the decision of whether or not you get the job lies in the hands of others. By releasing your attachment to a specific outcome, you free yourself from the stress and anxiety that comes with trying to control what is out of your hands. How to apply this? When you're faced with a situation where the outcome is uncertain, remind yourself that your job is to do your best, nothing more, nothing less. Focus on the process and let go of the need for a particular outcome. This doesn't mean giving up on goals. Rather, it means approaching your goals with detachment, knowing that the journey itself is valuable, regardless of the outcome. Stoic joy in adversity. The final key moment in Stoic practice comes from finding joy, even in the face of adversity. This may sound contradictory. How can one find joy when life presents challenges? But to the Stoic, joy comes from knowing that adversity is what shapes us. Just as a muscle grows stronger through resistance, so too does our character grow stronger through challenges. Seneca wrote, "Difficulties strengthen the mind, as labor does the body." Stressful situations are not setbacks, but opportunities for growth. When you face a difficult situation with the mindset that it will make you stronger, you can approach life's hardships with a sense of purpose rather than dread. This is not about pretending that adversity is easy or pleasant. It's about recognizing that the struggle itself is valuable. Each challenge is a chance to practice resilience, patience, courage, and wisdom. By reframing stress as an opportunity for growth, the Stoics found joy even in life's most difficult moments. How to apply this? The next time you face a stressful challenge, ask yourself, how can this experience help me grow? Instead of viewing it as an obstacle, see it as training for your mind and character. With practice, you'll begin to view challenges not as something to fear, but as something to embrace. In summary, managing stress doesn't require drastic changes, just small mindful steps guided by Stoic philosophy. We've explored how Stoic practices like focusing on what you can control, practicing mindfulness, visualizing challenges, and setting boundaries can significantly reduce your daily stress. The key is in your mindset. By changing how you approach stressful situations, you take back control of your peace and mental clarity. These simple but powerful Stoic tools can help you build a more resilient, fulfilling life, no matter the challenges you face. Now I want to hear from you. What's one daily stressor you're facing, and which Stoic principle resonates with you the most? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss an update. Join our community of like-minded individuals striving for a life of balance and resilience. See you in the next video.